Hello and welcome. You're tuned in to The Backpage, where we sort through the freshest stories and news about UFOs, UAPs, and all things non-human intelligence.
Today on the show, NASA's Artemis II mission is rolling to the launch pad. We have the dates and the details for the first crewed moonshot since 1972.
Plus, a newly public DoD report seems to back up a key whistleblower's claims of reprisal, and we're digging into declassified UK files revealing their secret hunt for UFO technology.
It feels like we're simultaneously looking further out into space than ever before, while also trying to unravel mysteries right here at home. Let's start with what's happening in just a few days at Kennedy Space Center.
Okay, this is happening. After more than 50 years, humans are going back to the moon. NASA confirmed on January 9th at the Artemis II stack. That's the massive SLS rocket with the Orion spacecraft on top is set for rollout.
Rollout to Launch Pad 39B. I mean, just hearing that name gives you chills. This is real.
Exactly. The target date is no earlier than January 17th, so just a week from now. After that, they have a wet dress rehearsal scheduled for the end of the month, which is basically the final full-scale practice run without the crew.
And then the launch window opens. Multiple sources are saying the earliest opportunity is February 5th through the 11th, with many pointing specifically to February 6th as a likely target.
It's a 10-day lunar flyby. They're not landing this time. That's for Artemis III. This mission is all about testing the critical systems in deep space with 4 astronauts on board: Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen from the Canadian Space Agency.
Hold on, though. The sources mention a few recent technical snags: a bent cable in the flight termination system, a valve problem, some leaky ground support hardware. They say these issues have been addressed, but no earlier than January 17th feels like it's leaving some wiggle room.
Well, that's NASA for you. Measure twice, cut once, especially with a crew on board. But all official communications indicate they are on track. The journey from the vehicle assembly building to the pad itself is a 12-hour crawl. It's a huge logistical feat.
It is, and this mission is designed to stress test everything: life support, navigation, and especially that heat shield. Coming back from the moon is a lot hotter than coming back from low Earth orbit.
Which brings up something I found really interesting in the reporting. The crew has officially named their Orion spacecraft. You know, like how Apollo 11's command module was Columbia.
Oh yeah? What'd they pick?
They named it Integrity. The crew announced it back in September, saying it underscores the values of trust, respect, candor, and humility.
Integrity. Huh. In this day and age, that name feels pointed, especially coming from a government agency.
Right? That's the connection I saw. Here we have NASA, arguably the most public-facing, transparent part of the government space efforts, naming its moonship Integrity. At the exact same time, there's this massive, ongoing fight for transparency about what other parts of the government might know about things that are, let's say, a little less conventional.
It's a perfect pivot, because speaking of integrity and what people are trying to get out into the open, a new document just dropped that's stirring things up in the UAP community.
This is a big one. On January 7th, a heavily redacted report from the Department of Defense Inspector General was made public. It details a UAP-related whistleblower reprisal investigation.
Now, let's be super clear here. The report does not name former intelligence official David Grush, but multiple analysts point out that the details, the timeline, the nature of the complaint, they align almost perfectly with his publicly documented case.
Exactly. The complaint alleges that an official's classified access was revoked because they made protected disclosures to the Inspector General about UAPs. The report confirms an investigation into this reprisal took place and concluded in February 2025.
Wait, hold on. This is where we need to be careful. The report confirms an investigation happened. It doesn't validate Grush's claims about non-human craft or reverse engineering programs. It's investigating whether he was punished for making the claims, which is a very different thing.
That's a fair distinction, but it's still significant. According to the sources, it's official DoD documentation showing that these reprisal claims were taken seriously enough to warrant a formal OIG process. For many observers, this lends credibility to the idea that there is something real being suppressed.
I'd argue it lends credibility to the idea that our whistleblower protection systems are, at least on paper, functioning. But it connects to a larger pattern. Remember, even high-profile figures like Luis Elizondo had some of their more sensational evidence, like that mothership photo, debunked. So there's a history of claims not panning out.
Okay, but let's do our "okay, but why should I care" segment here. Why does one redacted OIG report about one person's security clearance matter to anyone else?
Well, according to the legislative reporting, it matters because it's the exact scenario lawmakers are trying to address. There's a proposed UAP Whistleblower Protection Act that was introduced in September 2025, specifically to protect federal personnel who disclose misuse of funds related to UAP studies.
So this isn't just about one high-profile case. It's about creating a legal pathway for anyone inside the system who might have information to come forward without fearing for their career. It's about what happened to Air Force veteran Dylan Borland, who testified about facing severe retaliation after a 2012 UAP report.
Right. And it's not happening in a vacuum. The National Defense Authorization Act for 2026, signed in December, has new provisions forcing NORAD and Northcom to give Congress detailed briefings on UAP intercepts. It's all part of this slow, grinding legislative push for transparency.
So even if a big UAP Disclosure Act doesn't pass this year, and analysts like Jordan Flowers at the Disclosure Foundation don't think it will, these smaller, targeted pieces of legislation are chipping away at the secrecy. And that's the connection. This pattern of official interest followed by denial isn't new, and it's not just American.
Not at all, which brings us to these declassified files from the UK's Ministry of Defence.
Yeah, this is wild. These are MOD documents from the 1990s, and they show that the Defense Intelligence Staff was seriously investigating UAP incidents. We're talking about famous cases like the Belgian Black Triangle sightings and the Rendlesham Forest incident.
And they weren't just dismissing them. The goal, according to the files, was to understand and possibly acquire advanced unidentified technologies. There's a 1997 internal memo quoted that says, "If significant numbers are reporting seeing strange objects in the sky, then there may be a basis in fact."
Stop everything. An official UK intelligence memo from the 90s basically says, where there's smoke, there might be fire, and we should check if that fire is a next-generation engine we can use. That's a pretty stunning admission.
It is stunning, but, and this is the skeptical take from the same source, the MOD ceased these investigations in 2009 and states it has no plans to resume them. So what does that tell you? They looked, for years, with serious intelligence resources.
And
And they stopped. The implication is they didn't find the breakthrough tech they were looking for. So for critics of the cover-up narrative, this is evidence against there being anything extraordinary. It's a historical record of a dead end.
see, I read that differently. I see it as the US is now publicly where the UK was secretly in the 90s. We finally have ARO and congressional hearings officially admitting that these things are real and need to be investigated. The UK was already there 30 years ago. It just shows how long this has been a serious topic behind closed doors, even if the public position was ridicule. A sitting U.S. Congresswoman, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, went on a podcast and claimed lawmakers have been shown classified evidence pointing to, and I quote, interdimensional beings.
Seriously, interdimensional beings? Not extraterrestrial, not non-human intelligence, but a very specific, very sci-fi term. That's a new level of rhetoric from inside the government.
It's a huge escalation, and it comes as we're seeing an unprecedented surge in public sightings, new data on underwater objects, and even academic papers proposing warp-drive propulsion. 2025 was a wild year, and it looks like it's just setting the stage.
So let's start with what people are actually seeing. We talked last time about a sighting surge in 2025, and now we have the numbers to back it up. The National UFO Reporting Center, NUFORC, logged over 2,174 reports in just the first half of the year.
That's a big number. That's up from just under 1,500 the year before. But NUFORC is always quick to point out that only about 3% of these reports are considered, worth pursuing. The rest are drones, Starlink, the usual suspects.
Right, but it's what's in that 3% that's compelling. Look at New York State, 66 sightings.
One report from March 25th described two fast white orbs that made sharp 90-degree turns and then, get this, transformed into dark aerodynamic ovals.
Okay, that's not a weather balloon. The transformation part is what always gets me. And there was another one, wasn't there? From a commercial flight?
Yes, on June 24th. A passenger saw a shiny, metallic sphere pass by the plane at close distance. They were adamant it wasn't a balloon. And more recently, November 4th in Wisconsin, two factory workers accidentally filmed a dish-shaped, dome-topped object gliding beneath a plane while testing their phone's zoom.
And they swear it wasn't staged. That's the kind of high-quality accidental capture that's so hard to dismiss. It feels like the combination of better phone cameras and less public stigma is creating a much richer data set for everyone.
And it's not just in the sky. A new data set is pointing downwards, into the water. The sightings app Enigma has logged over 30,000 reports since it launched, but the key finding is that more than 9,000 of them are within 10 miles of U.S. waterways.
So we're talking about unidentified submerged objects, or USOs, transmedium vehicles. This has been part of the lore for decades, but 9,000 reports is a cluster you can't ignore.
Exactly. And they've isolated over 150 specific incidents where objects were seen emerging or diving into the water without a splash. That detail is critical. The hotspots are right where you'd expect, the coasts of California and Florida, areas with heavy naval activity.
And this is ringing alarm bells with former military officials. I saw a quote from retired Navy Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, who basically called this a major national security blind spot and criticized the Pentagon for withholding information on it.
He's not happy. He sees this as a threat that isn't being addressed. And the data from Enigma seems to validate the concerns that pilots like Fravor have been raising for years about activity off the coast.
So we have a surge in the air and a newly quantified surge in the water. How is the government officially responding to all this?
Well, that's where we get two completely different stories. On one hand, you have the official AARO report from August 2025. It covered a year of sightings, logged 757 new UAP reports, and concluded that while 21 remain unexplained, their historical review found, quote, no empirical evidence of off-world technology or secret reverse engineering programs.
The classic line. It's the same conclusion from their March 2024 historical report. Nothing to see here. We've looked. Trust us. It's a very consistent, very firm message from the Pentagon.
It is. But even the AARO director, John Kozlowski, admitted back in November that some cases remain true anomalies that defy explanation even for physicists and engineers. So there's a crack in the official wall.
A crack? I'd say Anna Paulina Luna just drove a truck through it. Her saying that lawmakers saw evidence of interdimensional beings is so far beyond true anomalies. It directly contradicts ARO's entire public-facing stance.
It's a direct challenge. And remember, this is in the context of the UAP Disclosure Act, which was written because senators like Chuck Schumer believe there's criminal concealment of UAP information. The legislative branch is openly at war with the executive branch and intelligence community over this topic.
It's the Grush effect. Ever since he testified in July 2023 about a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, the conversation has split. You have the official denial, and then you have this growing chorus from inside, or formerly inside, saying the denial is a lie.
And that split is having a massive impact on the public. It's impossible to talk about 2025 without talking about the documentary, The Age of Disclosure.
Oh, absolutely. We've covered it a few times, but its impact is still growing. It became the highest-grossing documentary ever on Amazon Prime Video. 34 high-level officials, essentially making David Grush's case on camera for 2 hours.
And you can draw a straight line from that film's success to the latest public opinion polls. A YouGov poll from November, reported in December, found that 47% of Americans now believe aliens have visited Earth. That's up from 36% in 2012.
The more striking number to me, though, is the unsure category. It dropped from 48% to just 16%. People are getting off the fence. The combination of official hearings, that documentary, and statements like Luna's are forcing people to pick a side.
The Overton window has shifted completely. It's no longer a fringe topic.
It's a mainstream political and cultural debate, which is now allowing for some really serious scientific papers to get published.
Which brings us to what might be the most fascinating development of late 2025, a peer-reviewed paper published in October in the Open Journal of Applied Sciences by Chad Wanless and Dave Palachek.
Okay, and the title is something, isn't it?
The title is 5 New Observables of UAP, Empirical Evidence of Dark Operational Warp Propulsion Systems.
Wait, warp propulsion systems? As in Star Trek? Alcubierre drive bending space-time? They're putting that in a scientific journal?
They are. They argue that 5 consistent visual patterns in UAP sightings are evidence of this kind of propulsion. The observables are gravitational lensing around the object, leading-edge vapor cones, a specific kind of motion blur, a pronounced disk tilt at low speeds, and saucer-like skipping trajectories.
Huh. So they're saying if you see those things, you're not just seeing a weird craft, you're seeing the side effects of a warp field in action. That's a massive theoretical leap.
It's a huge leap, but it's an attempt to unify decades of witness testimony under a single physics model. It's what science is supposed to do, create a testable hypothesis. And it joins a growing body of academic work. The journal Progress in Aerospace Sciences published multiple UAP papers in 2025.
So this isn't a one-off. There's a concerted effort from projects like the Galileo Project and universities in Germany to build sensor arrays, to actually capture hard data and move past eyewitness accounts.
Which sets up what we need to watch for in 2026. This scientific push is one pillar. Another is the ongoing declassification effort. The National Archives started its Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Records collection back in April 2025.
Right, the so-called declassification drip. We've gotten some pilot reports from 2007 to 2024, but it's a slow rolling release. The question is whether we'll ever get the good stuff, or if this is just a transparency exercise to release things they've already deemed harmless.
That's the core tension. We'll be watching for more releases from the National Archives, for Volume 2 of AERO's historical report, and for any actual data that comes out of these new scientific sensor projects.
And seeing if any more members of Congress start talking about interdimensional beings. After 2025, it feels like anything is on the table.
So, wrapping this all together, we have humanity's most ambitious public space venture in half-century literally rolling out to the launch pad, named Integrity. At the same time, we have this intense, complicated battle for a different kind of integrity, for transparency about what's been observed in our own skies.
And the predictions from the sources seem to be that both tracks will continue. Artemis II is very likely to fly in February or March. And on the disclosure front, while a single grand reveal is unlikely, the legislative and whistleblower pressure is expected to continue forcing small, incremental releases of information through 2026.
It's a fascinating contrast, the search for knowledge out there and the fight for knowledge down here. For now, all eyes are on Florida for that January 17th rollout. A new era of moon missions is about to begin.